All right, so I'm going to give the Nugget update. Overall, there's some discouraging news and then some hopeful news. So I can't really tell you whether this is good news or bad news. It's just kind of all over the place. Just like Nugget is and has been all his life, he is continuing to be a mystery, a medical mystery. Now, if, as I'm telling this update, if the sound goes wonky and I go underwater, please just let me know in the chat and I'll restart the camera. Okay, so Nugget, I'm just going to recap a little bit about what we've had happen so far. So originally I took Nugget in and I said he wasn't really gaining weight. He had this really big belly, you know, that was disproportionate to the rest of his body. And we had some blood work done that day, and it came back that he was anemic with regenerative anemia. Meaning that whatever was depleting, that while something was depleting his red blood cells, his body was replenishing them. So that meant that his body was capable of fighting back against whatever it was that was depleting the red blood cells. So that's what regenerative anemia means. He also had some high kidney values and a high white blood cell count. So those things all together didn't really tell a story. They didn't answer what was causing these things. But we decided to move forward with a theory that he had some sort of infection, possibly a GI infection. So we treated him with 2 different kinds of antibiotics. We put him on some prescription high-calorie food. And he responded really well. He started gaining weight. We saw almost immediately that he got a lot of his energy back. He suddenly, this kitten who, you know, was mostly just snuggly and sleepy most of his life, was tearing it up around the room. We saw this whole new side to him. And so we went back in 2 weeks after that for a recheck. He had his blood taken again. What we saw was that his kidney values and his white blood cell count, which had been elevated, were now back to normal. So those antibiotics did fight some kind of infection he had going on and treated it. So we were back to normal with that, which was really good news. However, we also still had the anemia, still present. When the vet ran the blood test in-house, it was again regenerative anemia. At this point, we wanted to try to rule out, most importantly, a blood parasite. There's a blood parasite called mycoplasma. And his symptoms aligned almost perfectly with mycoplasma. That's not something that they can run in-house. So they collected his blood, mailed it out for a PCR test, which tested for many different things, not just the parasite. And today we got those results back. So the disappointing thing is he was negative for the mycoplasma. And I say disappointing because if it was the mycoplasma, we would have had an answer. We could have treated it. It's not easily treatable, but we could. But we absolutely would have begun treatment and known what we were dealing with. So unfortunately, it was not. We still don't have answers. None of the tests came back conclusive for anything. One of the curiosities that came back is that when the lab ran his blood, it came back as non-regenerative anemia. Now, with non-regenerative anemia, it means that his red blood cells are not recreating themselves. So something is still depleting them, but they are having a hard time making more of them. And there are different reasons why this could be. But it's just very curious, why when the vet ran the blood in-house, it came back different than when the lab ran it. Same day, both blood samples were taken the same day, same hour. So I don't have an answer for that. And the vet doesn't have an answer for that. But we are at, still the same point that we were where we just, well, I shouldn't say we're not at the same point. We've ruled out some things. And now we're at the point where whatever is causing this anemia is something, you know, according to his vet, is something that is more uncommon. You know, we've ruled out most of all of the more common things that it could be. And she gave me a list of at least 10 things that it could be. And they are all over the place. I mean, there's nothing about them that is necessarily similar. So we're going to try to, you know, see what we can test for of those 10 or so possibilities. We're going to see, you know, what we can test for in-house at Del Val, what might need to be sent to a lab, and what might need further investigating by an internal medicine specialist. So we're almost at the point where our primary vet has said, I've done all I can do. You now need a specialist. We have 2 more tests that she's going to run at Del Val. One of them it requires that he fast, and then he needs to get his blood drawn, you know, first thing in the morning, and then a little bit later they feed him, and then he gets tested again after he's eaten. So because they have to have this sort of regulated environment to run this particular test, we are treating it like same-day surgery. So he has to fast. He goes in Monday, so he has to fast Sunday night. I drop him off again Monday morning like we do with surgeries, and they'll have him for the day, and then I'll pick him up later that afternoon. So he'll have this one test that I think this one is testing his liver, and then they're going to test his thyroid, but it's going to be tested in-house, not the one that you send away. So we're testing his thyroid for hypothyroidism. So I'll have some results. I should have some results by Monday evening, and then the other results will be here Tuesday. So that's sort of like the best that we can do through our primary vet. You know, before we move on to something with a specialist. So Sunday we also had River coming here because he has his leg amputation surgery on Monday. So the timing of this actually works out perfectly. So Nugget and River will both be here Sunday night. They'll be in the nursery. I plan to have the cam on them. You guys will get to see them, get to watch them all night in the nursery. And they'll bunk together. They both have to fast, so it's perfect. They won't have any food overnight. They should have some visitors They'll have a snuggler that comes at 6 o'clock. It's usually Nicole who'll visit, and I also put it out there to Jillian that if she wanted to come see him, she could come visit, and she was very interested. She wanted to bring a friend of hers too, who's really wanted to meet Nugget, so they should have some company throughout the night. And then I'll bring both of them Monday morning and drop them off at Del Bow. So that's what's going on, as far as short term. The earliest I could get an appointment for Nugget with the internal medicine specialist is March 23rd at Mount Laurel. So that's a month from now. And the good news is that, while he's been at Robin's, he's been eating really well. He's continued to gain weight. He's now 2.5 pounds. So he's gained like half a pound since he's been there. And since he's been on this medicine, he was under 2 pounds before he started on the antibiotics. And now he's 2.5 pounds. So he's doing really well weight-wise. Robin said he's doing really good energy-wise. He's, he continues, anytime he's awake, he's playing, running around. So, even though, he is anemic, his energy level has still remained, pretty good. So as long as he continues to eat, continues to act well, we'll just count down the days until his internal med appointment. He can't get neutered before then. That's all been postponed. We can't let him go home to Jillian's yet. He has to be very closely observed during this time. So, we'll just be on a waiting pattern until internal med on March 23rd. If for some reason, he takes a turn and something changes, and he appears to get sick or, something like that, we always have the option to bring Nugget to the Mount Laurel ER, and once he's admitted in through the ER, then they can have internal med look at him the next day. So and they even said that on the phone, just because the date, is so far off. So, Robin will be keeping very good eyes on him. We know we can trust her. And we know that if anything, does go wrong between now and the 23rd, we'll get him right in there and get seen. So, I know that this isn't like, we don't have happy good news today about him, but I think, overall it's good that he's stable and he's doing well right now.